Imagine standing on the rim of a basin so vast that an entire town fits inside it. Farms, schools, train tracks, 100,000 people going about their lives on the floor of an active volcano. At the center, smoke rises from a crater that has been venting since before anyone kept records. Around it, grasslands roll for miles, kept green for 1,000 years by fire deliberately set by the very farmers who grazed their cattle there. This is a landscape built by catastrophe and tended by hand ever since, and today, you're walking straight into the middle of it. Welcome to Walking Tour of Japan, a podcast dedicated to bringing you a new adventure somewhere in Japan with every episode. Each week, we'll travel to a different destination. From ancient temples and stunning gardens to fascinating cities, historic landmarks, and hidden gems tucked away across this incredible country. If you're gearing up for your own trip, head over to northstartravelers.com where you'll find gear recommendations to help you travel smarter, plus a full list of our other podcast shows covering destinations around the world. If you love discovering new places and planning your next adventure, follow the podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you're enjoying the show, leaving a positive review goes a long way in helping others find it. Now, let's explore Japan. You start at the edge of the caldera, up on the outer rim, looking down. What spreads beneath you doesn't look like the inside of a volcano at all. It looks like an entire valley, green and inhabited, with roads cutting across pasture land and a river catching the light. That's the trick of Mount Aso. Most volcanoes you picture as a single cone. This one is a basin 25 kilometers long and 18 wide, with a rim you could drive around for half a day and still not finish. Geologists believe the basin took shape across a series of colossal eruptions, the most recent of which collapsed the ground into the bowl you're looking at now, roughly 90,000 years ago. The ash from those eruptions didn't just reshape this corner of Kyushu. It's been found buried in soil layers as far away as Hokkaido, well over 1,000 kilometers to the north. Stand here for a moment and let that sink in. The ground in front of you erased itself and rebuilt into something livable, and people have been living on it ever since. As you start your descent on the road that winds down into the caldera floor, the perspective shifts entirely. What looked like a single green bowl from above resolves into farmland, fences, and grazing animals close enough to touch. You're not visiting a nature preserve here. You're driving through someone's pasture, someone's rice paddy, someone's backyard. Roughly 100,000 people call this caldera home, which makes it one of the only places on Earth where a city sits inside an active volcano's collapsed crater. The 5 peaks rising from the caldera floor ahead of you, locally grouped together and nicknamed the 5 Peaks of Aso, include the still active summit you'll see venting steam later in the day, along with its quieter neighbors. From certain angles, particularly later from higher ground, those 5 peaks line up into a shape locals have long compared to a reclining figure at rest. Keep that image in your head. You'll understand it better once you're looking down instead of up. Your first stop on the floor of the caldera is a place that predates almost everything else you'll see today. A shrine tucked at the foot of the mountain, its grounds quiet even with visitors passing through. Local tradition holds that worship here began even before the time of Japan's legendary first emperor, and the shrine's own history stretches back nearly 2,000 years. 12 deities are enshrined within its halls, chief among them a figure remembered as the founding ancestor of this entire region, the one credited in legend with carving out the very land you've been driving through. As you approach, you pass beneath a soaring 2-story gate, one of the largest of its kind anywhere in Japan, its double roofline unusual even by the standards of Shinto architecture. Look closely at the woodwork, and you'd never guess this gate is relatively young by the shrine's standards. It was rebuilt only in the mid-1800s, and then rebuilt again far more recently. In 2016, a severe earthquake tore through this region and brought the entire gate crashing down, along with the hall just beyond it. Restoration took more than 7 years, finished only in December of 2023. Stand underneath it now, and you're standing under craftsmanship that is, in a sense, brand new, even though the faith it represents is among the oldest in the country. Walk a little further into the shrine grounds, and you'll find a pine tree that locals visit specifically for blessings on marriage, and beyond it, the inner halls where the founding deity and his family are honored. Outside the shrine's main gate, a covered shopping street stretches away from the entrance, lined with small shops and food stalls, and locals sometimes compare its atmosphere to a miniature version of a more famous hot spring town further south. Scattered through this neighborhood are dozens of natural spring outlets, fed by water filtering down from the mountain above, and you'll see locals stop with a cup or a bottle to fill up as they pass. The water here has a reputation for being some of the cleanest in the prefecture. Leaving the shrine grounds behind, you continue along the road that curves toward the heart of the caldera, and within a few minutes, a strange little hill appears on your right, set apart from everything around it. It's a small cone no more than a few dozen meters tall, blanketed entirely in grass with a soft dimple right at its peak, as if someone had pressed a thumb into the top of a perfectly formed mound. This is one of the youngest volcanic features in the entire caldera, and it has a story attached to it that's been passed down for generations. The legend goes that long ago, during a famine, the founding deity of this land climbed to high ground and scattered handfuls of rice down to the starving people below, feeding them through the worst of the hunger. The cone you're looking at is said to be what's left of that pile of rice, and the dent in its summit, where his hand last touched it as he flung the final scoop. You can't climb it. Access to the top has long been restricted to protect the slope, but pull over at one of the viewpoints along this stretch of road, and you'll understand immediately why this odd little hill, more than almost anything else here, has become a symbol of the whole region. As you continue deeper into the caldera, the land begins to climb again, and the road eventually opens onto a wide plain, quite unlike anything you've passed so far. A sweep of grassland stretching out at over 1,000 meters of elevation, framed by two of the 5 peaks on either side. This is grazing country, and you'll likely see horses moving slowly across the field. Sometimes, led by hand for visitors who want a short ride through the meadow, 2 shallow ponds sit within the grass, marking the spots where ancient craters once opened. One holds water through most of the year, the other tends to dry out in summer. What's easy to miss looking at all this green is that none of it happened by accident. For more than 1,000 years, the farmers of this caldera have deliberately set fire to these slopes every spring, burning back the old growth so fresh grass can rise for grazing season. It's a practice recognized internationally now as one of the world's great examples of sustainable land management, proof that this entire landscape, as wild as it looks, has been shaped by human hands working alongside the volcano rather than against it. The cattle you see scattered across the grass include a local red-coated breed, prized well beyond this region for the quality of its beef, and you'll have a chance to taste it before the day is through. From here, the active peak itself comes into clearer view, a darker, more barren silhouette rising beyond the green. Depending on conditions on the day you visit, you may be able to continue up toward the crater rim itself, where sulfurous steam drifts constantly from a lake of acidic, mineral-rich water far below. Access changes by the day, sometimes by the hour, since this remains one of the most active volcanoes in the country, monitored constantly for shifts in gas levels and tremor activity. If the crater road is open when you arrive, it's worth every bit of the slightly unsettling smell that drifts on the wind. If it's closed, as it often is, you haven't missed the real story. The grasslands and the shrine you've already walked through tell just as much of it. Leaving the grasslands behind, you make your way north toward the outer wall of the caldera itself, climbing one of several promontories the locals simply call noses, where the rim juts outward into the basin. This particular nose sits higher than the rest, and it's here that the whole shape of Aso finally clicks into place. Look south across the caldera floor, and the 5 peaks line up exactly as people have described them for generations. A long, low silhouette that genuinely does resemble a figure lying at rest. Head to one side, the gentle slopes forming something close to a sleeping form against the sky. On a clear morning, particularly in autumn or winter, a sea of clouds sometimes fills the basin below this viewpoint entirely, leaving only the peaks visible above the white as if the reclining figure were floating. There's a reason this particular spot draws photographers back again and again, in every season, at every hour. Come at sunrise if you can manage it, before the tour buses arrive. The light moves fast here, and the difference between 6 in the morning and 9 can be the difference between an empty overlook and a crowded one. Standing at this rim, looking back across everything you've just walked through, it's worth pausing to take in the scale of it. You've crossed an entire collapsed volcano on foot, and by road today, past a shrine older than most nations, past a hill shaped by hunger and generosity in equal measure, through grassland kept alive by deliberate fire for 1,000 years, beneath a peak that is, this very moment, still quietly venting from the inside. Mount Aso isn't a single thing to see and check off a list. It's a working landscape lived in and shaped by the people who call it home, sitting on top of a force the size of which most of us will never fully reckon with. Few places on Earth let you stand this close to something this powerful while still feeling, somehow, completely at peace. If you have time before heading back down, a few practical notes worth knowing. The road and trail networks change frequently with the volcano's activity level, so it's worth checking current conditions before you commit to a specific route for the day. The grassland areas can be considerably cooler and windier than the towns below, even in summer, so bring a layer you wouldn't otherwise think to pack. And while the crater itself draws the crowds, the quieter pleasure of this place is simply slowing down in the grasslands in the early morning, before the buses arrive, when it's just you, the wind, and a few grazing horses who couldn't care less that you're standing in the middle of one of the largest volcanic calderas on the planet. Before you head out, a few places worth your appetite. Right in front of the grassland plain, a small roastery serves coffee made from beans roasted on site, along with a milk-based brew that's become a local favorite and a charcoal latte that's as much a novelty as it is a drink, perfect for warming up if the wind has gotten to you. Closer to the shrine, a no-frills counter restaurant serves the region's signature red beef over rice, sliced thin and nearly raw in the center, topped with a soft-cooked egg. Arrive early since they tend to sell out well before closing and take a break most Fridays. Beyond the caldera itself, a few destinations are worth folding into your trip. Kurokawa Onsen, a hot spring village tucked into a steep, wooded valley not far from here, has built its entire identity around preserving an old-fashioned Ryokan town atmosphere, and a single pass lets you hop between several of its open-air baths in one afternoon. Kikuchi Gorge, a cool, forested ravine on the opposite side of the caldera, offers a shaded walking path along clear mountain water. A welcome contrast if the volcanic terrain starts to feel a little stark. And if the crater itself was closed on the day you visited, the Volcano Museum back near the grasslands gives you a way to see inside it anyway, with live camera feeds from the crater floor and exhibits tracing the entire explosive history of the land beneath your feet. That brings us to the end of today's episode. Before you go, a few quick things. Subscribe so you never miss a destination, leave us a positive review to help others find the show, and share this episode with someone who loves exploring Japan. And if you're hungry for more adventures beyond Japan, visit northstartravelers.com to explore our other podcast shows and browse gear recommendations for wherever your next journey takes you. Your support means the world and keeps these adventures coming. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next walk.